Hello and welcome back to salesguru.us. So with these 5 videos we're going to be going through some architectural data models, and I've chosen a few examples that I've built. Some of these I'm using today, like the agile methodology. Some I've built in the past, like the recruiting app from the salesforce.com fundamentals book, and some I've just done just as a study, like the Starbucks and Amazon.com. When we finish those, we're going to go into a multi-tiered type of data model for the auction house for Wells Fargo. And let's begin. So before we can dive into any data model or architectural diagram, we first need to understand how to read these models and diagrams. So to start, let's review UML, which stands for the Universal Modeling Language. This is a formal way to describe states, relationships, events, things like that, and have other people be able to understand what you're saying. So let's keep in mind going forward that UML is a language. Without this, you'll go into a meeting and you'll be drawing circles. The customer will draw a circle, or the consultant will draw a circle. They'll add some words to it, and they'll draw another arrow to another circle with words in it, and they'll say, this talks to this or needs to talk to that over there. But that really doesn't mean anything. We need to define things like, what does it do? How does it talk? What data goes across? What states are involved? So UML is a language to describe complex systems. The whole idea is to transmit an idea from one person to another, literally, and to think about things in a rational way that are mutually understandable, so teams can model complex entities. You're saying to someone, here's what the customer is doing. They need these data elements, these processes, these states, these workflows, and UML is a way to describe those things in a standard way. So for simplicity's sake, let's think of a company as a box, and each side is a different tool you can use to try and capture what the customer is telling you and put them down in a way that someone else can actually do the work. So an example would be a state diagram. So a state diagram is used to give an abstract description of the behavior of a system. And this behavior is analyzed and represented in a series of events that can occur in one or more possible states. So an example is just a real basic example are the lights on or off in a car. It doesn't talk about the relays and the complex things that need to happen behind the scenes to make the light go on in the car, but focuses on the states that the car is in, or the states that the business is in. So a single state can actually have a flow chart, it can have a swim lane, it can have other documentation like a requirements and solutions document associated to it. So the objective of these techniques here are for people to be able to communicate in a standard way. Now as I go forward, I'm not going to use screenshots a lot. As you've seen, most of my demos are in the org, they're in the instance. I'll go through a PowerPoint like this or an introduction just as a kind of a starting point. But I will focus on getting everyone into the org. We're going to go into the schema builder, for example, in Salesforce and start pulling out some ERDs or relationship diagrams. And but I want to go back to a good example real quick here. So a good example of these techniques is when a business analyst goes to the customer site. What comes out of this meeting? Well, when the BA absorbs something, they produce some kind of document. It may look something like a requirement and solutions document or a use case, but either way they are using a standard diagramming method so that when they pass it on to the technical architect, the TA will be able to say, yes, I understand what that is and what needs to be built, what the LOE will be for this, and produce their own documentation, which in turn the BA will be able to understand, review, and produce back to the customer. So with standard diagramming methods, they should be able to say, these are the data items, and here is how they relate to each other, and here is how they are manipulated by the states of the customer system. So the more standard the system of approach, the easier it is to communicate and build a solution for the customer. So let's go to our data model, actually. So this is one of our first videos that we're going to be going through. It's a coffee house like Starbucks or Pete's, and it's a very, very simplified data diagram, but it's a great starting point. You can see here we have lookup relationships, we have or optional relationships, we have essential relationships or master detail relationships, and so we're in crow's feet, and there's all this is the language that I'm going to be discussing, the UML language. So as we go through this first data diagram or data model, then you'll be able to see how these things interact and how the entity relationships relate to one another. So with that, I'm going to end this first video. I hope this was a good introduction, at least, to get us started. And please join me for the next videos, and I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.